Hi to awesome movie nerd watchers. Elliot here for my end of year, beginning of year, best of video. First of all, my apologies to you, and more specifically to you, Abby. I've dropped the ball and been really busy hanging out with my family. This is, of course, a different background than you normally see. But as Abby and I have both set out to do, I'm going to be talking about my top 5 films of the year, which, trust me, took a lot of thought. And seeing as how I'm late, I'm going to be telling you about my top 5 upcoming movies from the next year, just as a sort of an atonement, as it were. So, number 5 on my end-of-year list was Tropic Thunder. Abby mentioned this in her list. An incredible film. I watched it again and again and again, and I'm always laughing. And Robert Downey Jr. is amazing, Jack Black, like the entire cast. And the entire thing was directed by Ben Stiller, which I find hilarious because, you know, he's got directorial ability. If you haven't seen Tropic Thunder, you're definitely missing out. Number 4, a movie that I actually just saw today, but immediately goes onto my list, is Doubt, starring Amy Adams, Meryl Streep, and Philip Seymour Hoffman. First, it should be noted that the whole thing is written and adapted for the screen and directed by John Patrick Shanley, and I was floored by the entire process. The movie was great. The story really hits hard, and the acting was impeccable. I mean, it felt like a piece of theater, a piece of great theater that you were just seeing on the screen. It didn't feel forced like some of those other films that were based on plays or musicals. It didn't feel like Rent, where they were trying too hard to adapt something into a cinematic medium. It just felt simple and flawless and smooth. Definitely a lot of awards consideration up for this one, I'm sure. Probably Best Adapted Screenplay Oscar, I'm guessing, and possibilities of nominations for any, if not all, of the ensemble cast. Next is another theatrical adaptation, Frost Nixon, which tells the story of then ex-President Richard Nixon going on his first televised interview since resigning office and being pardoned by Gerald Ford, and it's a really great film. Frank Langella owns the screen, and while the movie itself drags a little bit, the performances are so great that it still earns its spot on my top 5 list. So while it could be argued that an entirety all over movie should still be up on the list, I thought that the entire acting cast, the entire cast, from Sam Rockwell to Oliver Platt to Langella himself, were just utterly top notch. I mean, I was debating whether or not to put WALL-E on my top list, and it is one of my favorite movies of the year, but at the same time, Mr. Nixon would not be denied. Next, another movie that is on Abby's list, Rachel Getting Married, is my number 2. I love this movie, top to bottom. The entire cast is outstanding. The music was great, and it was shot in an interesting fashion that kept me absolutely riveted to the screen. But of course, the reason that it's here and the reason that it's number 2 is Anne Hathaway. Tour de force performance, unlike anything that I've seen this year. I was floored by Meryl Streep in Doubt. I was absolutely amazed by Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, but Anne Hathaway, she's got to get some recognition for this, more than she already has, because it's absolutely outstanding. And now, my number 1 choice, probably not as conservative as it should be, but hey, it's my list, so who cares, is The Dark Knight. Everybody's making a big fuss about the fact that people are only considering this movie seriously, seeing as how it was Heath Ledger's role, his last role before he died, or maybe blaming his descent into depression over his taking on the role in the first place. But if you cut all of that out, if you just look at the cinematography and the acting and the script and the story and the compelling human nature of this piece, you have to appreciate it for what it is. Forget the fact that it's about a guy in a suit. It talks about something much greater than that. So for Christian Bale's outstanding performance, for someone who I don't think has gotten much support at all, Aaron Eckhart was unbelievable. Most people are just talking about Bale and Ledger, but Aaron Eckhart, I think, is probably the scariest part of the movie, seeing as how you see the process of him going from, the White Knight to the, corrupted, insane Two-Face. I think that says it all, and I think that talks to the greater message of the movie as a whole. So those are my top 5 from this past year. Now, quickly, because I'm doing a really long video as it is, I'm going to talk about my top 5 upcoming ones for next year. First off the list is Coraline, which is a Henry Selick stop-motion animation adaptation of the book by Neil Gaiman. You know, if anybody who knows The Nightmare Before Christmas knows Henry Selick's great. He's an amazing director, and he's really sort of perfected this form of stop-motion animation. And so I think that that aesthetic blended with Neil Gaiman's storytelling is just going to be a sight to see, and I mean that. Next is J.J. Abrams' imagining of Star Trek, which, I mean, fanboys across the country are already freaking out about this one, and I've been really stoked to see the footage that I have, and I think it's going to be probably one of those, you know, it's going to be a regeneration of the entire franchise. So just like the James Bond franchise has been rebooted with Daniel Craig, and just how the Batman franchise has been rebooted with, you know, the whole Dark Knight series and Batman Begins, I think that's exactly what this is going to be for Star Trek, and I'm really excited for what that could possibly mean. Next is a bit of an iffy one. For those of you who have been keeping track of the legal furor over the Watchmen movie, many of you probably might not know that the film is actually being contested as to whether or not the company that that made it and is planning to distribute it actually has the rights to distribute it. So it's possible that the film, which I believe is due out the 6th of March, might actually not even make it to screens. And I mean, you know, the hope is that it will, and even though they've changed the ending, but that's neither here nor there. I'm still excited to see it. But it's a possibility that it might not make it there at all. So we'll just try to keep up on that one. Next is the Spike Jonze directed Where the Wild Things Are. It was one of my favorite books as a kid. I am so excited for this one because I just, you know, think it's probably one of the most cinematic storybooks that children read, you know, generation to generation. I'm going to read it to my kids. I definitely know that. And so I'm just hoping that Jonze can actually helm this into a good representation of what that book is all about, Maurice Sendak's classic. The last film that I'm going to be adding onto this list is sort of an appeasement to any and all Pixar faithful out there, because I am definitely one of you. Up. The film based around this simple idea that an old man decides that he wants to leave his hometown, but he wants to take his house with him. So he basically buoys the entire thing by millions of balloons and flies off into the sunset, or so we think, but then we find out that there is a stowaway on board in the form of a young Boy Scoutish character. And I'm just so stoked because Ed Asner is going to be the voice of the curmudgeonly old Carl Fredricksen character. And I mean, you know, Pixar has actually been really disappointing throughout its career of actually creating movie trailers that, you know, seem like they would be really great. Because, of course, they have to produce them before they're actually done making the movie. But that's not the point. The point is that this one is really great. And if this is great, I can only imagine that the movie's going to be even better. So the animation studio is at it again. I can only imagine that it's going to be, you know, well within, you know, reach of WALL-E or The Incredibles, Monsters, Inc., Nemo, Toy Story 1, 2, and 3. 3 is on its way, by the way, so if you didn't know that, get ready. But you know what? That's all I really have to say about that. So, ladies and gentlemen, happy 2008 transition into 2009. I hope you're having a good new year. And as soon as Abby and I are back at school, we'll be bringing you more videos on more movies. So this is Elliot for the Two Awesome Movie Nerds, and go forth and watch.